Jets general manager rumors are heating up as the New York Jets are beginning to interview potential candidates for the GM job, while also a potential New York Jets target is not going to be in the NFL draft this year, pushing back what could have been someone who the Jets seemingly had a lot of interest in, and we're going to break it all down. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Jets Digest. It's Chris and Matt here, and we're going to jump right into things as we usually do. And if you guys like the content that we're putting out, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton, with 18% of viewers being subscribed right now. But let's jump into it. We have a lot to talk about considering the New York Jets. Matt, they've begun their search for the general manager, and Adam Schefter revealed that meetings are this week, as said by Adam Schefter. And the way I said that makes it seem like Louis Riddick right here is Adam Schefter, but I think you guys know the difference of what they look like. Included on the list of candidates expected to interview for the New York Jets general manager job are former Titans general manager Jon Robinson, who at one point helped build one of the league's better rosters in Tennessee, and ESPN analyst Louis Riddick, who's also a former NFL player, who previously has worked on the Philadelphia. This is not my error. This is Adam Schefter's, I might say, in the Philadelphia and Washington front offices. Adam Schefter threw me off. That's not my fault. It's Matt.
That's not an error. That's not an error.
That definitely has nothing to do with me not recording over the weekend. This is BS. Adam Schefter tried to get me, and he succeeded. But we also have more to talk about, considering Adam Schefter also said the Jets are not married to the idea of hiring a general manager first and a head coach second, nor vice versa, as the organization undertakes a thorough process aimed at yielding the best candidates in each position. It just happens that the interviews for the GM job will start first. Robinson and Riddick are free to meet with the Jets at any time they wish, whereas other candidates who are with NFL organizations cannot interview with the team until after the regular season ends. That's why the process with candidates not employed by other NFL teams starts this week. Boom! Yeah, comments. I can read. I'm just too busy having fun with Matt, so I get just completely off the trail of it. I do know how to read these graphics. I read the comments. I see you guys making fun of me. Matt, I know how to read. Woody Johnson doesn't know how to hire GMs, but I also like the idea of Jon Robinson. Louis Riddick, I feel like there's a reason why he's been named to so many GM jobs and not getting it, that I'm not too sure about him, but Jon Robinson does seem interesting. He seems like someone who, it's wild that Tennessee fired him to begin with, and between the connection with Mike Vrabel, the fact that he would very likely hire Vrabel for the Jets job, someone who Aaron Rodgers would be happy to see go and be the Jets head coach, would probably lead to Rodgers and Adams coming back next year after having their best game in New York Jets uniforms just yesterday. It feels like this is all culminating in what could be a good hire for Woody Johnson. Obviously, other candidates will emerge as the playoffs begin, though.
So that last graphic you put up had a pretty important ending, which was the Jets are right now, they're only able to interview candidates who are not currently working for an NFL team. Louis Riddick works for ESPN, and Jon Robinson is not GMing a team right now. So those are guys that they are allowed to interview. The candidates you would have to imagine who are going to be higher up on the Jets hiring boards, who they want to go get, those are going to be guys who are already in front offices right now, whether they be lead draft scouts or assistant general managers or other managerial positions. That's where the New York Jets are going to look for their GMs. These interviews right now are more so their due diligence interviews. They're just making sure they give everyone a fair chance, and they want to make sure that they can get who it maybe these not working with NFL teams guys, they're probably not the answer, but Woody Johnson is going to interview them to make sure that he knows for a fact that they're not the answer, instead of just assuming they aren't the answer before he goes and hires them. So you can't forget about them. Woody Johnson, we're going to make sure we check all the possible GMs who could find the best fit with this team. I really, what we've seen in the past with Woody Johnson over the past 25 years, we've had no reason to believe that he's, but we're going to have to hang along for the ride, and hopefully he does get it right this time, whether it's an NFL guy already or a guy who is not in the NFL, maybe working for ESPN, working for any multitude of news outlets, sports outlets. Hopefully Woody Johnson can get a guy who can actually come in and make a difference for this team and make the playoffs, something we haven't done in the last 14 years.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we're going to see guys who are part of NFL teams getting interviewed. It would be, I mean, it is Woody Johnson, so I don't want to say that for a 100% fact. It's very likely the Jets aren't going to rush into hiring someone, especially now they have special advisors, and Mike Tannenbaum's not dumb. He's probably not going to push for that with Woody Johnson, as we know. He trusts Tannenbaum. It would make sense that the Jets will take their time. Now, I think I speak for most Jets fans. I'd way rather a general manager get hired before a head coach, so the general manager could have a say in who the head coach of his team is. But it becomes this situation where head coaching interviews are just going to start later because of the playoffs, and many, many head coaching candidates are guys who are currently coaching or assistant coaching or coordinating, I should say, teams in the NFL playoffs. So it does feel like the Jets will likely hire a general manager first, and we'll start to see more interviews come around in the coming weeks of this. It is interesting to see the Jets getting a jump on this, though. It feels like it's earlier than most other teams going out there, and maybe it's because they're going outside the current NFL landscape right now. But when there's a guy like John Robinson, who'd be shocking to see him not get interest from other teams also, you have to imagine that this is sort of the right move in the sense of, look, Louis Riddick has been looked at for many years as a front office guy, and he's been highlighted as someone who everyone knows wants to be a general manager. He said it's his lifelong dream, even though he loves his job at ESPN. So it wouldn't be shocking to see that. But on the topic of John Robinson, during Robinson's time at Tennessee, he oversaw the Titans' drafting of Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown. The team never had a losing season. During his 7 years, they made the playoffs 4 times when he was the general manager. And then when he got fired in 2022, it floored people across the league. Robinson's the second winningest general manager in franchise history with 69. Nice! Including playoff wins. So the only person he trails is Floyd Reese. He was very good at his job. John Robinson is someone who I actively would be quite happy with the Jets hiring. When it comes to Riddick, it's a little less known just because when you keep getting interviews for jobs, I mean, the Giants interviewed him now like 7 years ago, and he's still looking for GM jobs. That's not a good sign.
So John Robinson is the guy to trade away A.J. Brown for Treylon Burks, so we can't forget about that. 2022 draft. I don't know why I don't pay that guy, but that's definitely one stand that you cannot.
Yes.
You can't forget about it when talking about John Robinson. I know people were surprised that he got fired, but these GMs get fired for a reason. So the Jets, I want to get out of this mold where it feels like they just pick up people's trash for them. Like, we get the coaching candidates that other teams don't want. We get the GMs that are deemed as not good enough for other teams. So it's always like, oh, the Jets will get them. The Jets are at the bottom of the totem pole hiring spot. And it's annoying to see. So I really hope that if we are the only team interested in John Robinson, I really hope Woody Johnson can take that as a sign and think, you want to make your own decision, but at some point he's got to think, what are the reasons why no one else wants this guy? And should that mean that I don't want him either?
I mean, I think the answer, maybe not with Robinson, but in general, you're not wrong. It always happens that the Jets do get someone where it's like, oh, well, another team didn't want him because they weren't good enough, and the Jets just had to scoop him up because no one wants this Jets job because it's been a revolving door for so long, whether it's the coaching or GMing, to where it's just tough to take this job. I mean, the Jets, though, despite this god-awful season and it being probably the most disappointing season the Jets have had in maybe ever, it might be the most disappointing season in Jets history. Like, yes, that happened. But if you have Rodgers and Adams coming back next year, you're going to have someone who's interested in trying to get that back for another year and thinking, okay, is it possible that it just took Rodgers some time? Now, again, he's never going to be the MVP player again that we saw. And even against the Jaguars, he looked great. You could definitely see why he won 4 MVPs, and 2 of them were not that long ago. But you could tell that he's still a great quarterback at times. There's a possibility that he had to recover from this Achilles injury and go into a team that's just as we've said handfuls of times, that's a roster, not a team. Rodgers even said, he's like, I don't know why they're not spending more time together, why we're all not spending more time together off the field. Like, Rodgers has called out some issues. Davante Adams has called out some issues. There's a world where someone who wants to come in here and perform a massive culture change with the roster they have now will be interested in doing that. I think the Jets, despite all this, are a much more enticing market than they've been in a very long time. Because even if it doesn't work out, there's a good chance they're going to have a high enough pick next year where if you have to trade Garrett Wilson away, and I think the best way in trying to keep Wilson, and despite the fact that he clearly does not love how Aaron Rodgers has been quarterbacking this season at all, I think your best chance of keeping him is having him know that Adams and Rodgers are coming back to try this one more year, because that means the two veterans who, especially in the case of Davante Adams, who doesn't have a championship, if two veterans come back and essentially like, no, we're doing this one more year, it makes you believe that these vets believe they could burn one of the final years of their careers actually trying to win the Jets a Super Bowl. I almost said a World Series, I'm not going to lie. But it becomes like, I think that has a huge impact on Garrett Wilson. And the Jets' best bet to keep Garrett Wilson, to keep anyone who's getting near a contract extension, is to keep Rodgers and Adams around. Just because, as I said, it makes it feel like the vets, like they believe, hey, this might be my final year. This is one of my last years in the NFL, depending on which one you're talking about. They're going to run it back with the Jets. And if they do that, it shows promise to it, someone who wants to take over for both the GM and the coaching roles.
So GMs and coaches, we already talked about how New York is probably not high on people's to-do list. They're not somewhere people want to go. But you know the people who don't have a choice to come to the Jets, Chris? The rookies. The rookies that we draft don't have a chance. However, there was a rookie this year who was supposed to be in the draft next year. You got a graphic for us right here about Drew Allar's decision to stay in school instead of coming out?
Yep. Drew Allar posted that he feels like he essentially has unfinished business with the New York Jets. Wow. With the Penn State Nittany Lions.
I thought that was a joke. Wow.
No.
Okay,
no,
so yeah, Drew Allar was one of the top quarterback recruits in his high school class coming out. He would have been eligible this year, but he decided to stay at Penn State and run it back another year in hopes of winning a championship. Of course, Penn State still in the playoffs this year. They still have a chance to win this year. If they do win, I'm not actually sure off the top of my head when the deadline is. So he might still have time to, if he wins this year, he might still be able to get out and go to the NFL draft. But that would only be if scouts are telling him he's going to be a first-round pick. With the type of traits that this guy has, if he plays really well, he is definitely someone who can play himself into a third overall pick, a second overall pick, even a first overall pick. He's 6'5". He's like 255 pounds, got a rocket arm. He has solid mechanics. His footwork is kind of all over the place. Last year was a lot worse, but his improvement on his footwork from last year into this year is something that gives me a lot of positivity when looking at this prospect, because it makes me feel like he can improve on things that he's been bad at in the past. So his footwork is really bad. In 2023, every single time there was a guy in the pocket with him, if he had to make a tough throw and there was another defender near him, questions about his toughness as well. But this year, he is borderline reckless when he's running the ball. He's putting his shoulders down. He's using his monster frame. He's running through guys. They're actually, James Franklin, the head coach of Penn State, has called a couple of running plays for him as well. He's ran for important first downs. He has showcased some flexibility in his arm against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. Really, really good team. The best team in the country, the Oregon Ducks. He had a couple great plays that made scouts really think, wow, maybe this could be the guy. No one ever thought Penn State's offense could put up that amount of points that they hung on the Oregon Ducks, but they did it. Drew Allar, they lost by 7, yet.
And Matt freezes, guys. That's what happens. Sometimes Matt just freezes on you. And frankly, look, Allar is someone who the Jets were going to have interest in because of the fact that, well, that's just like, we know how the Jets are going to have interest in anyone who's a quarterback who trying to look at Matt and take over is really cracking me up. But looking at the Jets, we know that if Rodgers comes back, they're going to have interest in a quarterback, staying behind him and developing him. Now, we also know that initially Rodgers was not thrilled about the Jordan Love draft pick until, obviously, that fell apart. But it just becomes this situation of, I'm honestly happy Allar's waiting a year. I don't want the Jets to draft a quarterback this year, and I think it makes more sense if they wait because Allar's stock is probably going to rise with another year at Penn State. On top of that, what you get to see is you get another chance to draft a quarterback. If the Jets, if they stick with Rodgers and Adams, what we're likely going to see is this scenario where they're not going to be able to draft one of the top 2 QBs. Allar will be a little bit below them, not farther, because he is probably going to rise his stock by staying another year. The Jets could find their way into being able to trade up for Allar for sure.
So here's what would happen. Here's the dynamic that occurs when he stays in school for 1 year is because when you're drafted in the first round, you get a 4-year contract with a 1-year team option. So the team has 5 years when you're on a team-friendly quarterback deal. So Drew Allar, he's a quarterback who needs to develop. And by going back to school, he has that last year of development still in school, not in the NFL. So he's going to be better that first year, second year, third year of his contract in the NFL. So your goal as an NFL team is to win when your quarterback is still on the rookie contract. Because once you got to pay him a ton of money, that's when the team starts falling apart around them. That's when you're running out of money to pay the other guys. So that's why you want to do it while they're on that rookie contract. So him staying in school, it is better for him because take a look at Bryce Young. We've seen what happens if you come out, and even if you're a highly touted prospect, if you come out and you flop, the teams are going to move on from you fast because that's just the way the NFL works now. It's quick decisions. They're honestly not correct. Bryce Young was brought back because their other starting quarterback, Andy Dalton, got injured in a car accident, which forced Bryce Young back in the starting role. And surprise, surprise, this really good prospect has looked, other than this week, the 4 weeks before this, has looked really, really good in the NFL. So these guys just need time. Same thing with Anthony Richardson. He looked awful. And then just like Bryce Young, this week looked bad, but the other weeks has looked a lot better since coming back. Time to work out. I think it's a little bit worse for the Jets that he goes back because you're talking about his stock rising. Now, if I'm the Jets GM, I'd rather spend a lower draft pick on him. But so I don't want to spend that higher draft pick on him. You got to remember, if you do spend a lower draft pick on him, you don't get that 4 years plus 1 year team option. So you don't get the full 5 years of him under that rookie deal. So you would have to pay him earlier. But I would want to get my hands on him if I were the Jets. However, they do get to see another year of Drew Allar because what we do know is his stock can't stay the same. It's either going to go higher or go lower. Right now, his stock is at what I have to imagine is pretty much a career high for him, a college career high, coming off against the SMU Ponies or Mustangs, whatever they're called. Doesn't matter. They're red horses. Mm-hmm. We're going to see what he looks like. They're not a great defense, ACC team. He can definitely show that he is the guy. He's got to win. He's got to beat them. They win that game. They're on the Boise State. That's another team that he needs to play really well against because they don't have a great defense. Then the game after that, they would be versus the winner of Georgia versus probably Notre Dame. That's going to be a great team regardless of who it is. So we're going to get a lot of answers on what Drew Allar is in these college football playoffs. One thing scouts look for is the guys who play big in the big games. So college football playoff, 12-team expanded format. There's a bunch of big games coming up. As I'm running out of time here, Drew Allar's not running out of time. He has another year. He's going to get another year after this. He has some big games coming up. I can't wait to see how he plays in them.
Facts. And guys, let us know what you think down below. Like this video, subscribe, turn on post notifications. I know this video is long, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. Have a great day and go Jets.